Hello everyone and welcome back to another AFK journey video. In this video, we're going to be going over the Prydwen updated PvP tier list and Dream Realm tier list and talking about the positioning of the heroes here. Let's get right into it. So damage dealers, S+, Diona, Lily May, and Vala. Now out of these, in my opinion, definitely Lily May is a top tier hero on both arena defense and offense, regular arena, supreme arena. She is one of the top tier heroes in the game. In general, but especially for PvP she is. I wanted to be a tier above the other two heroes here, Diana and Vala. Like, I know Diana and Vala are really strong. Vala is particularly good on offense. On defense, she is more counterable, but now that we have Clash Fronts, which is a game mode where people cannot even select their teams, Vala is a strong option to be running there, and even Sylvina has become stronger there as well. Diona is great, of course, on offense. He can shred through probably every team, and if you have Dunlinger combined with him, it's a very scary combo. Even on defense, it's very effective, like a Supreme Arena defense. There are some counters to it, so I don't think it's like 100% uncounterable defense. But overall, Diona is a top tier PvP hero. It's just that I think Lily May is a better than both of them, and like Lily May can work into pretty much all teams, whereas Diona and Vala need like specific teams to function. For the specialists, they have Scarlita and Tasi. So Scarlita, I think, is definitely top tier PvP hero. She will slot into pretty much all of your teams and make them better, providing you shielding at the beginning and then the kill threat and knockoff later on in the match, which is really scary. Like, if you have nothing to deal with her, or if you don't kill enough enemies before Scarlita descends, she's going to be dealing true damage and you're going to be in danger. Tasi is, Tasi, I know like people have become really fans of Tasi, and in Supreme Arena, she is definitely strong. Like, with the different buff tiles we have, specifically Lightbearer buff tiles, but she even works in like Mauler buff tile oriented comps. She has the invincibility, which provides her with enough basically survivability that she's not going to die until the end of the match. She will probably get off at least one of her ultimate casts, and that's all it takes for her to begin snowballing, dealing a lot of damage with the bonus penetration on Dream Dance and also the haste to then charge up the next ultimate much quicker. The problem is getting her first ultimate cast. That can take a while, and for example, for me, it might just be in my server, the people who I'm facing don't have very strong built up Tasis or Tasi teams, but I never have any issue dealing with Tasi teams. I know she is strong, but I feel like I don't know if she belongs in the S+ tier along with Scarlita, who I think Scarlita is an overall stronger hero. One tier above Tasi. I think Tasi belongs with the other heroes, which are in the S tier here, which are also top tier PvP heroes, but I don't think quite as good. And for regular arena, I know on the Arena 5 special map with the energy tiles, she is definitely strong, and basically without a Dunlinger, it's really difficult to counter that team. But for the other arena maps, for example, like if you set an arena defense, which is not on that map, then Tasi, I don't know, from the arena testing I did, it's just really difficult for her to cast her ultimate in time for her to make any meaningful impact on the fight. Lily May always has value. Tasi, like, needs her ultimate before she gets value. So that's my problem with her. But overall, she is a good PvP hero. I just don't think top tier. That's my opinion. So then we have the supports, Damien, Haywen, and Rainier. So Damien is a great support for offensive capabilities. He gives you the haste buff for your team as well as the healing. And he also has crowd control. He's one of my favorite heroes in the game, and he can slot into pretty much any team and make it better. Haywen is a great Stroll healer because she provides damage reduction along with her healing at Mythic Plus upgrade, and that is so amazing. Like her in a Scarlita Stroll team or any oriented Stroll team, it's really difficult. And like Haywen, yeah, again, on Supreme Arena, you're definitely going to want to run Haywen in one of your teams if you have her built. And for regular arena, I run her occasionally. Definitely on offense, I run her a lot. On defense, I'm trying different things now, but I still think she's a good defense option as well. Rainier is a good offensive option. For defense, not quite as effective. However, with Supreme Arena defenses using Celestial Hypogeans, Rainier can help you add another Celestial Hypogean to unlock that talent, which is good. And also, he's good in like the diagonal comp. Basically, if you have something to make your backline hero unaffected, like the Valid Shield spell, for example, Rainier will not position swap your ally, but instead just provide them with the damage reduction and cause the opponent on a buff tile to be taking more damage. So Rainier really counters this buff tile meta in this new season, because he forces either the opponent to receive the Rainier debuff or just deny them of using a hero on the buff tile, which no one wants to do. So Rainier is good for that. And even on defense, yeah, for Supreme Arena, I do think he's top tier this season. Thorin is a great tank, pretty much the best tank in the game for protecting your team, as well as having so many additional lives, which makes it really difficult for the opponent to break through, and also the kill threat, the damage reflect. For the S tier, interesting. So they have some new additions compared to previous tier lists. Odie is not really used in top level Supreme Arena defense as a regular arena anymore if people have enough heroes built. If you're lacking the other heroes built though, then definitely he's a good option, and like in Molar teams he's good. But these other heroes do see a lot of use in top tier play. Arden, Burial, Lenya, Elsa. Lenya in the Mauler tiles or Wilder tiles is really strong. Elsa in the Mauler tiles is a really strong combo. We just did a Supreme Arena like defense showcase of Sorin and Elsa combo, and it is insane. Elsa deals a lot of damage. She's really good with the Mauler buff tiles. She can become invincible, right? If you have the stage 3 final node unlocked for Mauler talent. So, and Lenya, same thing. Arden is great in crowd control teams, and he deals a lot of damage. He controls the enemies. Burial is great in basically stall-oriented teams. Zoo comps, he's good with Freesto, he's good with Thorin. He's good with Floribel as well. Floribel can summon. Burial can also spawn the shadows. He's good in a lot of maps where the opponents have to spread out. So overall, yeah, Burial is also a top tier hero, S tier. Moving on to the specialists, Carolina, Iron, Shakira, Sinbad, Talene. All of these heroes are top tier options. I think Carolina is the only one which maybe doesn't belong all the way up here, and Sinbad is more of an offense hero than defense. I think he can work on defense, but I think he's much better on offense. Carolina is okay, but I mean, Carolina is in a weird place because already in this Supreme Arena meta, with all the counters to crowd control with Wilder and Mauler buff tiles becoming unaffected, Valor Shield spell, Iron doesn't see that much effectiveness because he can't control many teams, and Carolina needs enemies to be controlled to get her full value and have her snowballs targeting like free snowballs onto the controlled enemies. So Carolina, I don't think really belongs maybe in the S tier or the bottom. She should be in the bottom of S tier. Shakir is a top tier hero. Like in the Mauler buff tiles, he's amazing. He's good on the energy tile maps. He just provides a damage reduction, haste for your team, and he becomes unaffected when he casts his ultimate, so he can solo Tasi's, right? Tasi can not put the Shakir to sleep. Yeah, so that is the thing. Talene is also great in Celestial Hypogean teams for Supreme Arena. She's good on the energy tiles, but she is counterable by control because that will interrupt her. And even now, Luca will be coming out, who has a disarm on frontline enemies, and I'm worried about Talene doing well. Like, I think Luca is going to counter Talene also. And Talene... The thing is, even if Talene gets a perfect ultimate off, you need more damage in order to kill the opponents. Talene on her own is not going to be hard enough of a nuke, in my opinion, especially if the opponent has healing like Haywin or something. Coco is a top tier support for PvP, damage reduction for your team, great option in Mauler teams, and great option even in Talene teams. Basically, Coco works well in pretty much any team, a great support, and even though she has damage reduction, I consider an offensive support because she doesn't have much healing, and she basically gives your team that much more time until her ultimate wears off to kill opponents and get a 5v4 or 5v3 advantage. Rowan is great for boosting energy of your team to take the first ultimate, but I don't think Rowan is really a top tier support. I would much rather like be using Haywin, Damien, or Coco instead of Rowan. That is the thing. Rowan is in a weird place. He has a little bit of healing with the potions, and he has that energy generation, but other than that, he's not really providing anything. When you compare it to the other heroes here, they kind of provide more than the Rowan, and that is kind of his issue. For the tanks, Dunlinger, Granny, and Freesto. So Dunlinger is definitely a PvP meta hero. It can counter certain enemy teams really effectively, and he does well with Diurnal, but he can do well in other teams as well, even with your own Shakira casting your ultimate with Dunlinger giving his basically exclusion onto the Shakira. I've seen a lot of cons with Dunlinger, and Dunlinger can also counter a lot of enemy defenses that they're running that rely heavily on their ultimate cast. So definitely a really good tech hero, but the thing is with Dunlinger is that he's just so down the priority list of Celestial Hypogeans. Most people will not have him unless they have almost all of the other ones built up. Because, for example, Freesto, Rainier to Mythic Plus, Scarlita, Talene, those would all be more important like utility heroes for your account before you would even consider Dunlinger. And Dunlinger also would probably want to have Diurnal fully built before even going for Dunlinger. Granny is a really tanky hero, but I'm not seeing much use of Granny, and personally for me, when I use Granny, it doesn't really change the tides of my fight by much. Like, really what it seems like is you want to have more offensive options, even on your Supreme Arena defenses, than running Granny, just because, for example, if the opponent can kill your back line, what use is Granny going to do? Just tanking the front. Because basically there are a lot of methods of opponents bypassing your frontline tank, and so Granny is only good if all of the opponents are attacking her and she is not killed. Freestro is great. I really like Freestro for PvP. 2 heroes for the price of 1. They have high damage output, and you provide a really useful Crimson Contract buff to your allies. So overall, I really like Freestro. I think he's a really strong PvP hero. I really would also put him up to the S+ tier with Thorn. I consider him really great. Okay, moving down the list, we have the A levels, and then we're going to briefly go down to the other ranks. So A rank, Sylvina, Viperion, Floribel. I think those are the standouts for the A rank heroes. Brian can be good if you're using him to counter enemy Lily Mays, like for example, having Brian take the interruption of Lily May instead of Iron. That can work. However, it does waste a slot on your team, so I don't know if it's actually worth it. And then Seth is good in Mauler-oriented teams. Yeah, he is. I've been seeing him use much more in this season compared to before. But yeah, I think Viperion is good in, like, with Ludovic, with a lot of healing. He can hit really hard. Sylvina is good, especially now that we talked about Clash Fronts. You have game modes where the opponent will not be able to position around your Sylvina and she can get value, like assassinating a buff tile enemy. And Floribel is great in stall-oriented teams. Looking at the specialist, Igor is good for stall. Nara is fine, but again, it would only really be like Clash Fronts where the opponent doesn't have a method of positioning around you to counter you. Parissa is good. I think Parissa has really useful buffs for your team. Attack buff, like normal attack buff, and also attack speed buff for your nearest ally. And Soren, we've just seen in my previous video I uploaded that he's pretty effective even in Mauler buff tile comps. He has a lot of damage. He has a crowd control. He does well with Ulmus with the knockdowns, and he's going to get only stronger as we unlock his Mythic Plus magic charms to give him more skill power. Ludovic Mikola. Mikola, I think, should really be a more higher ranked up here PvP hero. She has an Honor Arena, which gives you the attack buff, which is pretty valuable, and also the Courage Sphere, which gives you the haste buff. And if you can keep her alive, she can get a lot of value, especially in a melee-oriented team with like Maulers, Shakir, Brutus, Vala, for example, who can jump into the enemy team. So I like Mikola a lot. I'm using her on my Supreme Arena defense right now. I would probably move her up to the S tier. Ludovic as well is a really good healer for like Viperion, for Talene, where you need that super sustained healing. He also does damage. He has the stuns in his kit. He's a good hero. I like Ludovic as well. I would probably move him up as well. For the other tanks, okay, Ulmus down in the... I think Ulmus belongs in the S tier because Ulmus does really well in crowd control-oriented teams like Soren, Dumont, Iron, things which have a lot of knockdowns, knockups, displacement effects. Ulmus does well. And I know he is counterable by, you know, the unaffected buff tiles as well as the unaffected Valor Shield spell. Even Lily May can interrupt, you know, your Iron so that Ulmus doesn't get value right at the beginning of the fight. But overall, I think he belongs in a tier above this. Lucius and Brutus are fine. Brutus, yeah, I think probably belongs in the A tier. He does pretty well in Mauler teams. Even on the buff tile, he can be good, but nothing amazing. Now moving down the list, we have more heroes. Tunisia, Corin, these are heroes which would enable your Lightbearer comp with Tasi, for example, for Supreme Arena. So they have a use for that, because you need to have 3 Lightbearer heroes along with Rowan for Tasi on the Lightbearer buff style. Reese is also hits really hard in Supreme Arena. You can run him, and he's not a bad option. He's unaffected for the first 8 seconds of the match as well, so he counters crowd control meta. Smokey is a good healer, however, the problem is, you know, his positioning will not always allow him to heal up and attack buff as much of your team as possible, but if you can have him in a good position, he can get a lot of value for your team. On Tanjo Dumont, so Dumont we just saw in the previous video I uploaded as well, along with Soren, Ulmus, it's actually pretty strong. Dumont is not terrible for PvP. It's not like he's Kruger tier. Like these other Kruger, Khafra, Valen, like Atalanta, these are all heroes which belong in C tier. But Dumont belongs above this, at least B tier, maybe even A tier. On Tundra, also, I would think A tier, good tank option if you don't have other options. So with all of that covered, that is going to be the PvP tier list. Overall, I do think like pretty much of the tiers, the positioning of all the heroes here is pretty accurate. I just mentioned some of my thoughts, and I mean, it is arguable. Like I said, Tasi probably belongs in the S tier. However, in this season specifically, definitely she could be considered at the bottom of the S plus tier as well. But in my experience, and that's kind of like how I'm also judging this, is that Tasi is never too terrifying for me. I've not had run into Tasi teams where I'm worried about being like, how am I going to clear this? But it might also be because of the defenses people are running. But I even have, there's one person in my server who runs Tasi on the energy tiles in arena defense, Supreme plus Tasi, and I have no issue dealing with that team. However, I do have Paragon 2 heroes, so maybe if it was a Paragon 2 Tasi, maybe it would be different, but yeah. Okay, let's move on to the Dream Realm. So Dream Realm is much more simple. Lily May as a damage dealer option, Friesto as the quote-unquote tank, but in Endless Boss mode, he's a damage dealer. That's why you're using him. You're not using him for tanking out. So I'm gonna talk about first of all Endless mode. So for Endless mode, the meta is very decided. All the heroes in S plus tier, which are Lily May, Mikola, Smokey, Friesto. These are the 4 heroes which are used in almost every Endless boss right now. Then the 5th hero is usually going to be a selection of either Rainier or a Shakir to buff up your team more, or in some cases Taylene. But that is pretty much it. So that is basically the Endless meta, and those all belong in the S plus tier. So I would probably move Shakir up to the S plus tier. Even pre-Endless, he is a great option to be running, so I think he belongs in the S plus tier. Coco I would also move to the S plus tier because there are teams, I think even in Endless, which rely on Coco for the damage reduction. But even definitely before Endless, Coco is a really important hero for your damage reduction to keep your team alive to deal more damage. So that is that. Now Taylene, so the S tier for Taylene, before getting to Endless, Taylene was used in almost all of the top performing Dream Realm bosses, maybe 6 out of the 8. But now that we've made it to Endless, she's only the best option in 2 out of the 8 Dream Realm bosses, and maybe arguably 3, the Crystal Beetle. The Crystal Beetle team with Taylene versus non-Taylene is almost very similar in damage, so I don't know if I would consider Taylene to be the best there, but for 2 of them, King Croaker and Skyclops, she is the best option. So I think also Taylene belongs in the S plus tier because before getting to Endless, she was one of the most dominant, and after Endless, she is still used in 2 out of the 8 top performing Endless boss teams. Kruger, OD, Lenya. OD is not really used anymore. Lenya, Kruger, even Sinbad should be up here in the S tier. Basically, Kruger, Sinbad, OD, Lenya, Thorin, these are all heroes which did great before getting to Endless boss, but once we're now at Endless boss, they are not going to be seeing use really pretty much at all unless you don't have the better options built up, but they are all solid heroes to run in Dream Realm, so I think they all belong in the S tier. Even arguably, I would say move Tamesia, Corrin, Merrily up to the S tier as well, because yeah, I know in the top performing teams, even pre-Endless, maybe Merrily, Corrin won't use that much. However, if you don't have the other heroes built up like Lily May, then Merrily is usually your second best option. Corrin also can be a replacement for Lily May in certain teams if you have them at Mythic Plus. And for Necrodrake and specifically Tamesia, Corrin, Merrily, this was one of the best teams you could run if you don't have other better options. So I would say Merrily, Corrin, Tamesia should be up to the S tier. Shakira, Taylene should be up to the S plus tier. Coco as well up to the S plus tier. The other ones should remain in the S tier. That would be my opinion. So looking down the list, we also have Ludovic, and we have Elsa. So Elsa is a part of Orson, the Dream Realm boss. For Endless and pre-Endless, she has always been the best hero. You have to run her if you have her. Even at 1 copy, she can work. So just for that use, even though it's only 1 out of the 8 bosses, the fact that she's the best there, she has to be at least A tier, and honestly, I would move her up to S tier. I think if a hero is the overall best in a Endless and pre-Endless boss team, even 1 of the 8 bosses, you have to put them in S tier, because they're a hero you need to build up if you want to get top performing scores in the boss. The other heroes here, for example, in B tier, and even in, they are not needed, so they do not need to be here, but I would move the Elsa up to the S tier. Ludovic, so Ludovic, he has been in the best team for King Croker. However, there could be a possibility like Lily May would be better than Ludovic even in that team, and we need to do more testing of that. But Ludovic is a good option. He deals HP per second damage just like Freyester and Smokey, so he hits really hard. He sustains your team. The problem is he doesn't provide any attack or haste buffs. Like Smokey provides attack and haste buff and hits really hard with his blue aura. Ludovic only hits hard and has like burst healing. So with Talene, he's a good combo, but really, once you get it to Endless, you don't need Ludovic healing to keep Talene continuously casting. Smokey would be enough. And so then it's like, what are you using Ludovic for, really? But he does have the damage HP per second. So he's still a good hero. I would move him probably to the S tier. Yeah. The other heroes here, Scarlita, Cassidy, Florabelle, Brian, Vala, Reese. These can all be in the A tier. None of these are needed heroes. None of them are best options or even second best options in Dream Realm. So yeah. Moving on to the B tier, any other useful heroes here? Laika, no, Diurnal, Cecia. Early game Cecia can see some use before you have other heroes built. Same with Florabelle, just because of their summons to deal extra damage. But for pretty soon, you're not going to be using them at all. And then in the C tier, there is Sylvina. The only hero here which is worth mentioning is Sylvina, because for Lone Gaze specifically, Sylvina does kind of well in like pre-Endless. In Endless, she's not like in the top team or anything, but for whatever reason, she does well in Lone Gaze. So I would maybe move her to the B tier. At least not C tier. So anyway, guys, or maybe A tier. Yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thank you for watching. That is going to be it for this one. Let me know what you think about this tier list. And if you have any other opinions, you can let me know in the comment section. Or you can join my Discord server. Link to that in the description of this video. But thanks for watching, guys. That is going to be it for this video. And until the next one, everyone, peace out for now. And thank you for watching.